Hi, and welcome to the How to Love Living podcast. This podcast, we discuss the things that might be holding you back from living your fullest life. On this week's episode, we discuss Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I believe this is one of the basics that any of us can analyze and work to live and be with our fullest selves. I think this is one of the guide stones that can help you in just figuring out where there's deficiencies or figuring out where there are areas that you can put some improvement into. So, who is Abraham Maslow? So, Maslow's hierarchy of needs was developed by Abraham Maslow. He was born in New York, Brooklyn, New York, and his philosophy was more of a humanistic philosophy. And that sort of philosophy of psychology, and it's really humanistic psychology, that philosophy is really about your function now is what is most important. How you're functioning, working with the world right now is the most important aspect of your psychology. And I think there is some truth to that. I think that, how you're functioning right now, how you're participating with the world is important. And I think it's important to, understand how you participate in the world. And I think humanistic psychology focuses on the here and now and focuses on where are the areas that you can get the most bang for your buck as far as working through the challenges of day-to-day life. So what things can you kind of measure and what things can you really look at to create like a fulfilling life, and what things are important that you're missing, what things are important that you can improve upon, and what things are important that you're doing great. And with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think it's a good way to just measure your functioning on a scale. So it's understanding the different components of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then understanding kind of where you fall on the scale. And it isn't necessarily that you're going to be able to fix everything, or it may be that you have all the pieces of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and both those things are relevant and good. So I'll give you a scale overview. I'm going to include kind of a graphic of it on the YouTube videos. So this week we are launching the YouTube channel. It will have graphics of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can watch that there. As well, I'm linking in the show notes just information on Abraham Maslow, and in that, the Wikipedia page I'm linking, it will show you the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But I am going to be producing this podcast onto YouTube, so you can go onto your YouTube channel and check it out. And I'll put a link to the YouTube channel in the show notes as well. So the first part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is deficiency needs. It's kind of this area of what deficiencies are you experiencing in life. So kind of the four deficiency needs is physiological needs. So this is physical needs. Safety needs. So these are things like home, housing, shelter, that sort of stuff, food. Belonging and love needs. and esteem needs. So those are your deficiency needs. So physiological needs, safety needs, belonging and love needs, and esteem needs. So those are kind of the basic things that if you're missing any of those, then it's a deficiency in your life experience. Then there's another section, just growth needs. So these are areas that, are there for growth. And that is self-actualization. So the growth need is, have you self-actualized? And really it gets down to, if you have deficiencies in the deficiency needs area, the question to really ask yourself, am I thriving or just surviving? Thriving being that you have a lot of the basic needs met or all of them met, and that you're able to participate in the world in a healthy, happy, and contributive way. And that's where self-actualization comes in, is how are you contributing and how are you participating in the world? If you're surviving, that means that some of the deficiency needs are not being met. And that could be, your physiological needs, your safety needs, belonging, love, and esteem. Something is lacking, or there might be multiple things that are lacking. So we'll start off with the basics first, just talk a little bit about each of the sections. So with the physiological needs, I'm having fun with that word today. So physiological needs. This is just the basics of living. So this is, are you getting food? Are you getting water? Are you getting warmth and rest and shelter? It's really the basics of just surviving. And really, if you're not getting the basics of just surviving, food, water, shelter, then that should be the first center of attention in, getting to your happiness, is definitely making sure that you have those things or seeking out services that get you those things. It's really important to have the basics met so that you can grow to self-actualization. The next one is safety needs. Are you in a safe environment? Are you, are you safe in interpersonal relationships? Are you safe in your location? Are you safe at your place of employment? So those safety needs, I think, are very important, because if you don't have safety, then you're on a survival mode, and it's really hard to reach a level of fulfillment if you are missing that. Like, these are pretty basic stuff, but I think it's good to kind of reflect upon your life and just think about, is there something that I'm missing in these areas? And I know they're pretty basic, but I also know that they're very fundamental and very important, and I want to discuss them just because, sometimes I need to remind myself that these are things that are important. I need to take care of these things and make sure that I have these things met in my life, and really strive to keep up on and cognizant of these things so that I can make sure that I'm not letting any things go to the wayside. Not that I do, but there's times when you can be in a situation and be in denial of it. And this could be that you are suffering and you're in denial of it. But the difficulty with that is in the long run, you end up hurting yourself more than helping yourself if you live in denial. This could be in denial of an abusive relationship, or this could be in denial of food even. There's some people that, for various psychological reasons, believe they don't deserve food. Just stuff like that. You got to be really cognizant of that. Every person and every individual deserves these things. Every single person. And it's giving yourself permission and giving yourself the right to get these basic needs met. The next one is belonging and love. And this one is one, the other two, the safety and the food and that sort of stuff, has always been something that I had a lot of. I did go through some relationships in the past where it wasn't as safe, so that was kind of a thing that was going on for part of my life, but that was something I knew I needed to work on and I fixed. But one of the basics outside of safety was the belongingness and love needs. And especially for people who have either fragmented relationship with their parents or fragmented relationships with their family or no relationships with their parents or family. This belongingness is something that's really, really important. And what I'll say to that is I'll say that having intimate relationships, and I'm not talking about sex, and I'm not talking about a spouse or a partner. I'm talking about intimate relationships that are friendships. Do you have people that you're close to? Do you have people that you can count on and that can count on you? Do you have people that love you and that you love? And what I'll say is this: is I'll say that growing and developing these relationships is very, very important. I still think that you need to get the other basics down, but I do think having relationships, quality relationships in your life that build up a safety net, people that you can lean upon and that can lean upon you. And it's funny because you got to figure out how you contribute to a relationship, and the contributions that you give to a relationship may be different from the contributions that you receive from the relationship. So an example of that, of this inequity, and I think this inequity is fine, is you may have relationships in your life where you are given a safety net, meaning that if something went sideways, you'll be okay. Like you have a place to live, or you have a place to crash, or you have people that love you and will make sure that you're safe. That's a safety net. And you may not be able to provide that safety net, but you're providing other things in return. You're providing ending love. You're providing understanding. You're providing a ear to listen to. You're providing experiences. You're going out and doing things with your friends. So just because you're deficient in an area with your friends doesn't negate your contributions to the relationship. And I think that's something that, people struggle with, is just making sure that these inequities, that you recognize your contributions to these relationships and understand that although you may not be able to be there a million or 1,000% as much as your friends are, you're there in ways that they do need you. And friendships, just in a more generic stance, we're not going to get along with everyone. Our personalities are all very different. We have different challenges. We have different things going on. And so you got to accept that you're not going to get along with everyone. I've accepted that a long time ago. And so the friendships I have, I value very deeply. I care deeply about people, but I also understand that friendships range. So I have friendships where I talk to them every so often. I have friendships where I talk to them every single day. And I have friendships where I just know they're a good friend. And all those type of friendships are very healthy. So, in this belongingness and love needs, one thing that your mind might go towards is intimate relationships of a sexual and partner perspective, like a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend. That's important. I feel like having that special connection to a specific person is very, very important. But I think friendships are more important. I think that having quality friendships is the basics. And then if you can find someone who you love and someone that you want to spend the rest of your life with, or what have you, based on whatever your kind of mindset is, then get that. But I think that it's definitely getting a good network around you and getting good friends is very important. And I actually feel more strongly about that. Like if I were to put these in order, I'd probably put the food, water, shelter first. I'd put friendships, belonging, and needs second. And I think that safety kind of comes along with that. So as you develop these friendships, the safety kind of, develops out of that because your friends want you to be safe and they want you to have a happy environment that you exist in. And so definitely I put the friendships higher. Although if you were to ask me 10 or 15 years ago, I wouldn't have put friendships. I probably put it at the very bottom. I pretty much had a perspective of I'm doing this on my own. Like I'm just going to power through it. And I realized as I've gotten older that it's very, very important to have good quality relationships. So the next one then is going to esteem needs. And basically, this is your achievements. And I really do kind of classify this in two perspectives. I think that there's home achievements, meaning are you achieving things in your personal life that make you happy? And are you doing things in your personal life that make you happy? And, are you in service of your friends and in service of those that you love? But then I also think that this belongs to work as well. Are you in a position where you feel like you're succeeding, that you feel like you are achieving wonderful things? I think this is a basic, deficiency. If you don't have that feeling of success and feeling of achieving, it is a deficiency. And so we'll go back through the deficiencies again. So there's physiological needs. So that's your, you know, food, that sort of stuff. Safety needs. So this is your, making sure you have a safe home environment, work environment, location, etc. Belonging and love needs. So that's your relationships and friends. And then these esteem needs are having a successful work environment, having a successful personal environment where you feel like you're making progress and you're doing things. So those are kind of the basics. And any of these are missing, then it's a deficiency that you'll want to analyze and figure out how to fix. And my goal in the next couple of podcasts is to kind of dig in a little bit more into these and examine some of the underlying reasons that some of these things may not be met. And I do want to dig in a bit on all of these just because I think that they're important. I think that there's some underlying things that could cause you not to take care of these things. And I think that it's then getting these things, to a point where you're living that self-actualized life. And so that's that growth need. So the last one is that self-actualization. And that's a need as well, but this is a growth need. And it's different from the deficiency needs because it's something that, isn't missing. It's more of something that you're adding on to your life. You're adding on to the quality of your life. And so the esteem need then is, are you accomplishing something in your life that you want to achieve? And this is one thing that I'll argue is this is, are you accomplishing what you want, or are you accomplishing what other people want in your journey of self-actualization? And what I'll say is this is, sometimes accomplishing what other people want gives you self-actualization when it's something that you come to a realization it's something that you want as well. An example of that is music in my life. I'll use this as an example to kind of narrate this out. Now, this is not going to happen. I can actually go through an example of both where I was kind of forced to do something I didn't want to do, and then I was forced to do something I did want to do, and I can kind of go through it and talk about it from a self-actualization perspective. So when I was young, my grandmother was very adamant that I join music, that I play a musical instrument, and I had no feelings about it. Like, I probably, if anything, didn't want to learn an instrument, but I was kind of curious too, so I kind of went along with it. And so she was pushing. She's like, "You got to learn an instrument. You got to learn an instrument." And then my music teacher, so I decided, well, I want to learn the saxophone. The saxophone's a cool instrument, and I want to learn it. And my music teacher worked with me and convinced me I needed to learn the French horn. The French horn is a instrument not every child like immediately gravitates towards. They gravitate towards the trumpet or the guitar or the drums or something like that. So I ended up playing the French horn, and I went to competitions and everything like that as I got older. Is a very rewarding experience, and it was something I didn't want to do, and I felt like it was kind of forced on me, but it ended up being a very rewarding experience. So that's what I'm talking about in self-actualization, as far as achieving something that someone else wants, and that it turned out well. But then there's other times where someone else wants something for you and it doesn't turn out well, where they go through and say, well, Jeremy, you got to have this career, or Jeremy, here's my expectations of, what thing you're going to do. And it ends up being something I don't want to do and I have to say no to, or I force myself to do it and I'm miserable the whole step of the way. And so an argument for that would be I joined baseball. So baseball was something that my grandmother felt passionate about, that boys play sports. So I joined the baseball team, and it was okay. I didn't really resonate with me, and I ended up hating going to the games, and that was it. So, from that perspective, then I realized that I got to do what I want to do. Like, I definitely want to listen and I want to be open to what others think and what direction to go, but I need to be true to myself. So I will try out new things if someone brings something up. Like, if they say, "Hey, Jeremy, this might be a good thing for you to check out and try," I'm totally game, because I realize, oh, it's something that's not on my radar, and it's something I don't know if I hate or like. And especially if someone's passionate about it, I might take an extra look at it just to kind of understand it. But that's really, you know, just briefly, well, I didn't briefly, but, just going through the pressures of other people on you in your journey of self-actualization. There is sometimes that it is good, and there's sometimes that you got to be judicious and, you know, understand that just because your parents want you to be a doctor or a lawyer does not mean that's what you're going to be and that you're going to be happy in it. And some people end up being doctors and lawyers out of pressure from the family, and they love it. So, that's kind of what I was trying to explain there. But in self-actualization, I do think that there is a component of, you know, experimenting with the world, learning new things, trying new things, being open to new experiences, being open to creating new things. And I think that's self actualization. I think it's going through that journey. But I feel like the deficiency needs have to be generally met. So you have to make sure you have a good physiological food and all that stuff. You need to have the safety, you need to have belonging, friendships, and you need to have some recognition of your success to kind of build upon and get to that point of self actualization. So that's why the self actualization is at the very top of the pyramid if you're looking at the pyramid. So the physiological needs are at the bottom, the safety needs right above that, belonging, love, esteem, and self-actualization. That's kind of the order. And I do agree with this order. Earlier I mentioned that I thought, well, maybe, having friendships is more important than safety, but in reality, having safety is very important. And being that I've never been truly like unsafe, in a place where I didn't have friendships or I didn't have, the basics of my physiological needs met. Safety, I think, is something that's important for sure. So that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In the next couple of episodes, we'll kind of go through and dig into the physiological needs, the food, water, warmth, rest, that sort of stuff, the basics. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I do want to dig into safety, belonging, and definitely into the esteem needs, and then we'll definitely do an episode by itself of self-actualization and kind of once you get every those needs met, how do you do this exploration of self-actualization? Because happiness in a full life, I think, like talk about in previous episodes, it's all just learning, growing, and understanding. And so we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs here. This is made up by a human. This is like everything, it's all kind of made up based on experiences and understanding humans and relationships and understanding human needs. So this stuff is important, this stuff is relevant, and it is something that we should examine for happiness, but it's also stuff that's created by humans and is inherently flawed like anything that you're working with. So take this information, and really what I'm trying to do with the podcast is give you tools to kind of think outside of the box as far as how you approach life and how you see your participation in the world, and understanding kind of where it use the tools to figure out, okay, what things do I have, what things am I missing, what things do I want. And hopefully you can get to a point where you're living a quality life with the knowledge of your deficiencies and with the knowledge of what you want to work on and not work on. And so these kind of things, so Maslow hierarchy needs, I found it really relevant in my life. I found, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like these different components are important in our function in life and my participation in life. And so I want to share these different, facts and information so that you have tools in your toolkit to approach and build a even better quality life. And really that's what we're working towards. That's what we all should be working towards, is how do we incrementally improve our quality of life, and how do we love the life that we're living, and how do we participate in this world in a way that gives you the most bang for your buck. And I hate that phraseology, but I do think that it's very relevant to ensuring and building a life. So what things are you going to utilize in the stuff we talk about in these podcasts that will help you in growing and all that. Now what I'll say is some episodes are going to be relevant to people and some may not. And I'm putting everything out there as far as, all the content that I kind of consume. So I read a ton of books, and so I'm sharing things that I find relevant in my life, and I hopefully believe that you'll find relevant in yours. So in this podcast, actually this episode, as far as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I've been reading a book called Transend by Scott Barry Kaufman. I am putting a link in the show notes, so if you want to read this book, it talks about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and practical application of it. And he digs in pretty deep into some of the underlying precursors of things that could lead towards deficiencies in any of these deficient areas and that sort of stuff. So far, I'm on chapter 1, but the stuff is really good. I am, in those future episodes, going to bring up some of what Scott talks about. I want to bring in more research that I've kind of heard over the years and looked at that kind of, just backs up both what Scott says and backs up kind of my philosophy on it's not life, because I don't think that there's an ultimate answer to life, but I think that there is a way you can understand the challenges. And I think these research, so like one research piece I want to talk about is Harry Harlow and the rhesus monkeys. So they took a bunch of baby rhesus monkeys and they gave them a wire mother monkey, and they gave them like a soft velvety mother monkey, and just studied how these monkeys behaved. You can actually go to Harry Harlow. If you search him, Harlow, and you search him, you can get a preview of that research. But I think that kind of research is integral to understanding how we participate in the world, because we're all animals, and that's not a bad thing. We're all just creatures on this earth. And so our experiences and how we work with things is going to be pretty similar in a lot of instances. So that research I think is very interesting. I think other interesting research is like just, studies on how, like, they had a study on rats, and I'll have to find this because I do want to talk about this in a future episode. A study on rats where they had black and white rats, and would the white rats identify with the black rats and help them? And and it's an interesting study. I'll have to find the links, and I do want to talk about it a bit, just so we can understand kind of how we participate in the world and how we can be our best selves. And I do want to talk about bias, and I do want to talk about research into how bias plays in our decision making in life. And I think that living a cognizant life, living a life where you're aware, where you have a lot of information to help just dissect it. And of course, everything I talk about, some of it's going to be relevant to you, some of it is not, and that's okay. Hopefully some of it's relevant, so you get something out of it. But there may be stuff where you're like, I don't agree with that. And that's fine. This is a safe place where we can have just a conversation. And, some of these things Maslow's hierarchy of needs may be debunked at some point in the future. Who knows? I mean, it's a pretty established psychological thing, but who knows? Anyway, next week we're going to talk more about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, go check out the YouTube page. So I'm putting all the podcast episodes out on YouTube. I've been working in After Effects. This is my weekend project actually. This weekend after I record this episode, I'm going through and creating some visualizations in After Effects. So it's going to be a fun project day. And this podcast is for me a portion of my self-actualization. So in a way, this is a way for me to self-actualize and share all the, you know, things I'm learning and, hopefully helping people and hopefully helping at least one person. But I want to help more, and I want to, just work with and help everyone. I think that a knowledgeable people who have good self-knowledge, that have the tools in their mental tool belt to participate in the world, is a stronger people. So I'm in this for the long term. I want to talk about these things. I want to discuss all the different aspects of human psychology and how, and not only human psychology, but just how we participate in the world and how do we build these quality lives. And so the first episodes, all these episodes are kind of just basics of life, and then we'll kind of move on from that as we go. I'm going to stop saying kind of, but as we go forward, these are the things that we're going to work on. Anyway, well, thank you for listening to How to Love Living. I wish you a happy week, and definitely reach out. You can reach me at contact@howtoloveliving.com, or you can go to howtoloveliving.com and there's a contact tab there, and you can reach out to me there. Be sure to look for the podcast out on YouTube and check it out, and definitely on your different apps. So whatever app you're using, if you can go out and rate the podcast, this will help just make and share this podcast too, but this will just help with getting more awareness with others so they can go on this journey of growth with all of us. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you next week.